Welcome to the Paddle and Portage Podcast.
Our mission at Paddle and Portage is to bring the paddling, the wilderness community together through news, information, and most importantly, stories.
And one way we do that is through conversations.
Here today is one of those conversations.
Okay, we are talking today on the podcast with Olivia and Emma. They are part of the Hudson Bay Girls, the summer of 2025. They're going to be paddling from Lake Superior and Grand Portage all the way up to Hudson Bay, and we are excited to share some of this on the podcast. So let's jump in and start with some background on paddling and the origins of this adventure and trip that you're planning and why it's happening. Let's start with you, Olivia, and tell us some of your experiences with paddling and why you're interested in doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did my first Boundary Waters trip when I was 14 years old back in 2019 through the Girl Scouts Northern Lakes Canoe Base. That was just an amazing experience. It was a week-long canoe trip. We did the man chain. We went up into the Quetico. That was really just like the first time I have been like in the wilderness, done an intense trip like that. And I just absolutely loved it. So I came back to that program and I did like a guide and training program to like prepare you for guiding. I did that for 2 years and then I guided with them for another year. And then I went over to Northern Tier, the Boy Scout base, and I guided with them just last year. And yeah, I've also like paddled the Green and Colorado rivers on an outward bound like gap semester trip. And yeah, I paddled the New River in Virginia where I go to school as well.
So you got some paddling credentials.
For sure.
And when were you up at Cache Bay and going through the falls or man chain up in there? Did you go through Cache Bay when you went
I
in?
think we popped out just south of Cache Bay. We came out right where Otter Track feeds into Knife.
I got you. All right. Yeah, cool. And I should also say there are two others involved with this expedition, and we'll be hearing from them later in the episode, so hang around. It's the four of you that are the Hudson Bay Girls. Yes. All right. So, Emma, let's talk about you and some of your paddling and your experience getting into something like this.
Yeah, so I grew up in Maine and was basically paddling since I was old enough to sit up. My dad is an avid canoer and would take my brother and I out, and we'd sit side by side in a bow seat. And we'd each have our very useless paddle because we were too small to be actually helpful. But I've been growing up, I grew up in southern Maine, but we did a lot of trips out up through northern Maine and through ocean canoeing and rivers and lakes. I heard about the opportunity out in Ely, Minnesota for the Boy Scout base and took a job up there and guided for a year. And then the next year I was training the guides and also doing trail work for them.
Yeah, cool.
So,
what's it like in Maine? What's the lake scene or paddling scene like? Is there portaging and that type of stuff?
So we did mostly rivers because that's what's in southern Maine. So we would do a lot of river paddling. We'd go up north and do whitewater. I did a bunch with my Girl Scout troop. We would go and do a couple days in the woods.
Yeah, cool.
Paddling, but yeah.
Okay. So are you all friends, or what's the association between the two of you and then the larger four of you?
So Abby and Olivia met through the Girl Scout base.
Yeah.
And
then we both guided 2 years ago during our first season as guides. We did a 7-day trip in the Quetico together, and then we did a 10-day trip together just afterwards. So yeah, we got really close through that, and we found that we work really well together. And then, yeah, both Abby and I went to Northern Tier last summer to guide. Then Abby met Emma, and then I met Emma, and yeah, they were just a really cool person who was interested in a long paddling expedition. So we grew pretty close from there, and then we became a trio that summer.
Mm-hmm.
All right, yeah.
And then we decided we were going to do this trip, and we're like, we need a fourth person so we can do 2 canoes. And Olivia's boss is friends with Helena's boss, which is how we met Helena. and we brought her in. It was like a perfect, we clicked like the first day, and it was wonderful. I think we've all become pretty good friends, and we're going to test that this summer.
All right.
For sure.
And so you're guiding people on week-long trips in Quetico, sounds like.
Yes.
And who is it that you're guiding?
Boy Scouts. So for a normal like trip, it would be typically 6 scouts. The 7 and 8 would be your 2 advisors, and then the 9th would be you. So your advisors are adult leaders that come with the scouts. And then what I was doing this summer was I was taking out a group of 7 scouts that came from all over. So they were OA kids, or Order of the Arrow. And I was their adult medical support, all the things.
Mm-hmm.
I was the responsible adult for the trip. So
I see, yeah. All right. And how old is the group here? Like, what's the average age or the age of you?
Yeah, so I also, before Northern Tier, I guided for the Girl Scouts, and that was really like any female age like 12 and up, essentially. We also did groups with adult women, very similar style to Northern Tier.
What about you? Like, how old are the both of you?
I'm 20.
I'm 21.
All right, yeah. And so the idea to paddle as a group up from Lake Superior to Hudson Bay, where did that start?
Yeah, so I read Hudson Bay Bound by Natalie Warren, and I believe it was like winter in 2023, just a few months before my first guiding season. And since like my first trip in the Boundary Waters, I kind of always knew that like wanted to paddle farther. Like I wanted to go do Grand Portage, get to Lake Superior. I wanted to paddle up to Atikokan, and I just kind of had like all these big trips in mind, but I'd never thought about an expedition until I read that book. And just like the way she just describes the paddling up there and the scenery and just the adventure, that really drew me into where I was like, you know, I think I want to do that. And I love the Boundary Waters so much, so I was like, you know, I really want a way to include that. I've discovered the Vagabond Voyagers expedition from Lake Superior to Hudson Bay, which is very similar to ours. I discovered that my first guiding summer, and I was like, you know, that route sounds truly amazing. Yeah, I talked with Abby a lot about that, and then Abby came on board pretty soon, and we started planning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I heard about this through Abby. I made friends with Abby, and she was like, I'm planning this great trip, and was telling me all about it and showed me some maps, and I was like, oh my gosh, you guys are crazy. Can I join?
Right.
And yeah, I hadn't heard of Natalie Warren. I hadn't heard of the Vagabond Voyagers. I hadn't like considered this as an option until I was chatting with these 2 lovely people, and I was like, oh my gosh,
All right, yeah.
that sounds fun.
Yeah, I get that part, like that it originated and they're doing it, and you can kind of feel the enthusiasm from them. That part makes sense, but the origin still, like, tell me more, Olivia. It seems like you maybe got the wheels in motion on some of this. So when you're reading Natalie's book, and Natalie's been on talking with us on Paddle and Portage recently about you and other paddling things in her world. But when you read a book like that, I think most people are sort of in awe of her and the experience, but not necessarily thinking, how can I do it? So why, after just reading it, did you want to do it? What parts made you want to experience what she was, or at least, you know, your version of it?
Yeah, so I think just because I had my first paddling and my first like wilderness experiences with the Girl Scouts, like surrounded by like all these like amazing strong women that like were my guides, were my mentors, were teaching me everything I knew, that really like from a young age like made me realize that like I am capable, and made me like want to do more. It just made me never think like, oh, I can't do that. It just made me think like, oh, I will do that one day. It kind of just really shifted my mindset. So when I read about like Natalie and Anne and how they were like the first 2 women to paddle that, I guess I just realized like that could be me, and that sounds amazing. And yeah, I just realized like what Natalie was for me, like I would love to be able to be that for like younger generations of like women, younger generations of paddlers and like adventurers. yeah, I just didn't want to hold myself back. I didn't want to think I wasn't capable, because like I know I am, because all the women around me, just like up north canoeing, always were so capable.
So how are you making this possible financially and time to do this?
So we have a couple ways of doing this. Time-wise, we meet once a week online, because we're all over the country, and meet up, go over what we've done that week, and kind of set a schedule for what we're going to do next week. So like make a couple posts, reach out to a couple people for sponsors, and like that sort of stuff. So we are like partnered with a couple people and sponsored by, so we've gotten a lot of gear sponsored, so gifted to us. And then we also have been lucky enough to receive some donations from people who want to see this continue, because we're all college students. We don't necessarily have the means to do this if it weren't for all of like the wonderful people who have helped us. So
I got it. All right. So you're still in college. This isn't like I've graduated and now I'm going to start my professional life.
I'm graduating 1 week before we push off. So I walk across the stage, and then a week later, I'm pushing off on this trip.
Right.
Yeah.
What about you, Olivia?
I'm a current sophomore right now at Virginia Tech, and so I'll be going back into my junior year and 2 more years of school after this expedition. But yeah, half of us are graduating, and then the other half of us have a few more years of our undergrad.
All right. And how does this trip and even the idea of pushing your limits physically, mentally, the things that go into an expedition like this, how does that fit into your larger trajectory of what you want to do professionally or with your lives when you're done with school and this trip and so forth?
Yeah. So I definitely have been thinking about like what I want to do for my future. I know like after I graduate college, I want to take a few months and I want to hike the Pacific Crest Trail, because like I also love backpacking. I think it's just like amazing to get to be out in the woods and just like walking towards your goal. So yeah, I kind of like tend to gravitate towards just like large trips, not for just like the sake of like, oh, I did X amount of miles and X amount of days, just more to see like, just more for the journey, you know, just to like see the land change, like just have like an adventure like that. Yeah, I'd love to work as an outdoor instructor, hoping I can become a NOLS instructor, but we'll see. And yeah, in the larger frame of things, I definitely want to keep adventuring, expeditioning. Emma and I have jokingly not joked about some other really cool paddling routes for our potential futures, so yeah.
I mean, I think back to when I graduated from the University of Montana, Missoula, and I had done some cool things like the Green River and backpacked around Montana and stuff, but when I graduated, my parents were basically like, get a job, kid, and not like, go live your life and hike and paddle. So how are you managing to pull these things off in this way? Even from the sense of like, your family supporting it, basically. Not financially, but like the idea of it.
Yeah.
So my family has always kind of understood that I'm not going to take like a traditional path. That's never really been in the cards for me. I am able to support myself through like the adventures I want to do, because I am a certified welder. So I do welding and fabricating as my job outside of this, and probably what I'm going to be doing after this trip, just to rebuild the savings account. But I am also an artist, so it's not likely that I'm going to be doing the job that I'm going to get paid for. Is probably not necessarily the job that I'm going to like. I work to have experiences. I don't work to be at work.
Yeah.
So I'm probably going to be welding for a little while, and then I'd like to do some outdoor education. I'd love to work with like teens and young adults and teaching them how to like exist in the world, in the woods, how to do that in a safe and less impactful on the environment way. But I also have my fallback of just welding for a little while, building that up, and then wandering. So
Nice. All right. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I know for myself, when I first told my parents about this, they kind of thought because I talk a lot about all these big things. I'm also like an ultra marathoner, so they'll hear me be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do like a 50 miler soon, hopefully, and all this stuff. So they're kind of used to me telling them about these like seemingly crazy, you know, far off goals. But yeah, I know when I told them at first, they kind of didn't quite understand, but they've come around a lot, and now they're pretty excited and they're pretty eager for this as well. And yeah, I would say like all of our parents have some way of supporting us. Like a lot of them are like working on our food. They're like working on helping getting us like sponsors, talking with their friends. So yeah, they definitely have become more excited as we've like gotten closer.
Yeah, they're seeing that it's a real thing, and you're doing it, and you're organizing it. You've got support from people like Natalie Warren, and you know, that we're interested in for sure, and those types of things that make it a little more real, and that they can see people like Natalie. I also spoke with somebody named Tessa Larson, who went at a wilderness canoe base and did a similar route just from like Seagull Sag area. Yeah. So there's like, this can be done. I mean, it's not like this is that crazy, but it's pretty crazy. Yeah. But it's not like unfathomable or just there's nobody else. You know, hopefully your family and other friends and so forth, supporters, can see that you got the credentials as you both listed in your paddling backgrounds, as well as determination. It does not seem to be lacking at all. So let's talk just about some of the fears, concerns that you have at this point, you know, as it gets closer to either logistically or safety, any of these things that maybe sort of like just give you a bit of an anxious feeling when you think about doing this.
So I know for a lot of us, we like have, just from like guiding with different programs, like, you know, we hear like a lot of stories about like just like a lot of incidents and like accidents that happen on canoe trips. So I'd say that we all have a very good like risk management mindset, and especially like an expedition mentality mindset, where like the longer the trip is, like the less like daily risk you're going to take. Like if you're on like a 1 week canoe trip, you fall on a portage and like you cut your knee open or whatever, like it's fine. You can probably go to a doctor in a few days. But like if you do that in like the second week of an 85-day expedition, like that could become infected. That could be a problem. So it's really this idea of just being conscious about the risks and taking less risk, as well as just like doing more self-care, like taking that time when you get to camp every day to make sure that you're doing well mentally and physically. And yeah, in terms of just more like risky sections, I would say that we definitely are going to be very cautious on Lake Winnipeg. It's like the 10th largest lake in the world with an average depth of 40 feet. So really any amount of wind can just make those swells quite significant. So we'll be getting up at 3 a.m., doing some very early morning paddles up that lake to try to avoid the wind. And yeah, the last few days of our expedition, we will be in polar bear territory as well. So we've been doing a lot of research, and we will bring like different methods of bear protection, and we will know how to use them.
All right. Emma, what are some things that give you concern?
So I think my probably largest concern is one of us getting like injured enough that we like can't continue. We are all going to sign a contract at the beginning of our thing that's going to help us like be more connected for risk management. But then if something does like that you can't predict goes wrong, little nervous about that. Broken leg is something that floats around in my head fairly often, which you can do as much as you can to fix that on trail, but that's not gonna, you gotta go to the doctor for that.
Yeah, and the trip.
So yeah. But honestly, a lot of that we have like prepped for. We have an extensive first aid kit. We have actually an EMT on trail with us, and 2 woofer. So we've got a fairly stacked crew in the medical sense, but and then first aid and whatnot, and then also worst case scenario, the little SOS button on our inReach. And
yeah, we will be carrying 2 Garmin devices. One is a 67i and the other one is a Garmin inReach, and both are satellite communication devices. So worst case scenario, we'll be hitting the SOS button, but more likely we'll just be sending in like our daily check-in message. And yeah, very extensive first aid kit. Abby's a wilderness EMT, and then Helena and myself are both wilderness first responders. And just between all of us, just from like our guiding experience and also just our experience like working with different like university outdoor programs and everything, like we've all seen evacs before, and like we've all had to handle some sorts of medical incidents with our crews. So I just think that coming from that background of being an instructor and then going on this personal trip has kind of just given us like a good idea for how to manage these incidents.
What about sort of is this a trip ending type thing, like egos and moods and fatigue, and somebody else is tired on a day and the other party wants to keep moving on, like things that aren't as tangible as a broken limb, but like ego and fatigue. What about those things?
Yeah, so one of the things we're doing to like manage that a little bit is we're going to be together for a very long time. So Abby and Olivia brought the name Turtle Time, which would be when you get into camp, you just spend a little bit of time away, like not necessarily like far separate from each other, but like not necessarily talking to each other for a little bit, just to like take a little moment for yourself and like go, oh, I needed this, like I needed to take a nap, I needed to do this, and this. And then there's gonna be bad days. We understand that. I think we're gonna do more of like if it's a week of bad days, we take a moment and go, okay, what's the root cause of this? And like day to day, just trying to figure out, is it like checking in with yourself and going, am I hungry, tired, cold, soaking wet, like what's going on here, and just kind of figuring that out on a personal level. And then also I hope we have the point that we're all comfortable enough to go, hey, you're being kind of a pain, stop. So,
and you can curse on this podcast if you feel so inclined.
Great. I wasn't sure. Yeah.
Sure. So you've talked about this, in other words. You're not afraid to bring up the fact that somebody might be crabby and what are we going to do, and if it's prolonged, what's that mean, and that you're being proactive about that. That seems like a really, really good idea.
Yeah. And we will have like a group contract as well, and like we're still like, it's a very much like an ongoing process where like as we're planning we're adding to it, but the basis of that is like if we come across like an obstacle and like a rapid and 3 of us feel good running it and 1 of us doesn't, we'll find another way, we'll find a portage. So yeah, we're just trying to very much like keep the conversation open always, and yeah, just be honest with each other, check in with each other. I think the benefit of being a 4-person crew is that if there were 2 of us, we would kind of get very tired of each other. With 4 people, you kind of like, you have some more people you can mingle with, some more people you can talk to. But yeah, we'll definitely be prioritizing self-care when we get to camp, and definitely just giving each other the space we need to still feel good on the trip.
Right. Okay. Exciting. So you mentioned 4-person group. Let's bring in the other 2 members of the party. We'll talk with them. This is Olivia and Emma, and we'll look forward to following the journey. And we're going to just pause for a brief moment, and we'll be talking with Helena and Abby in just a moment.
Hello, I'm Bear Paulson from North Star Canoes. This is titled Minnesota is Unique. Sven and Oli got stuck here and never left. We have more Scandinavians per capita than the countries clustered around the Baltic Sea. We are the land of lutefisk and lefse. Rocky and Bullwinkle added to our uncommon fame. Frostbite Falls is the icebox of the nation. I cheered when it was below 0 for the Super Bowl in Minneapolis a while back. We needed that to cement our frigid reputation. Minnesota is also unique in having 3 major watersheds. From the BWCA, paddlers can go north to Hudson Bay, or east to the Atlantic, or with some portaging south down the Mississippi. North Star is unique too. We build canoes with an incredible blend of seaworthiness and efficiency. Seaworthiness means you'll be safe when the wind kicks up. Efficiency lets you get where you want to go. North Stars are easy to paddle on glassy days, and safe to paddle on rough ones. Rent a North Star at nearly all the BWCA outfitters, or purchase a new one from retailers nationwide.
Support for this episode of the podcast comes from Borderland Lodge, inviting listeners to unwind, explore, and create lasting memories against the backdrop of the Boundary Waters. They're offering pet-friendly cabins, lakeside lodge rooms, and cozy weekend dining along the shores of Gunflint Lake. You can find more about Borderland at their website, borderlandlodge.com. Also, check out their Instagram page for some of the incredible Italian pasta meals that Steph is making up at Borderland. Oh my goodness, check it out, Borderland Lodge on Instagram and Facebook, or their website, borderlandlodge.com. All right, now we're talking on the podcast with the other members of the Hudson Bay Girls 2025 expedition from Lake Superior all the way up to Hudson Bay, and it is Helena on the left and Abby there. Hello.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. It's really exciting to hear more about the trip. As I said, I talked with Natalie Warren earlier in the winter about it, and now it's getting a little bit closer. What's the estimated projected start date for the trip?
Yeah, we got our Boundary Waters permits for May 26th. That's when we're shoving off from Grand Portage on Lake Superior. And
is that like a South Lake entry permit, or what is the actual?
Yeah, it's South Lake.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll take the Pigeon River up.
Yeah, or South Fowl Lake, or one of those.
Yeah,
there,
one
right?
of the two.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember which one comes first,
okay,
but
yeah.
We'll take the Pigeon River over.
Right. And have you checked out like the Grand Portage area, like where you're gonna be? Do you have to like tell people with the band, the Chippewa band, that you're gonna be sort of doing this? Is that a thing you have to get clearance on, or just a sort of an acknowledgement that you're gonna be there? And then like, do you know what the Grand Portage entails and all of that?
Yeah, so for everyone listening, it's an 8.5 mile portage, and it takes you from Lake Superior to the start of the Pigeon River. This is where the Voyagers would kind of end their voyage at the, they would take all their fur trades, and they would trade with people both at Hudson Bay, and once they reached Lake Superior, those were two big ports. And to your point, we are going to be traveling on a lot of indigenous rivers and a lot of indigenous waterways. So we are trying our best to acknowledge that we are going to be traveling through these areas and to acknowledge the history that's occurred in the history that land has. So we've been working with indigenous communities to make sure we're doing everything that we can to travel.
And most people come down that route. Everybody I think I've interviewed who's come down it.
Yes, we will be going upstream on the Pigeon River.
And up the hill from Lake Superior.
That is true.
Wow.
That is true. Yeah, so we've had a couple friends do it the other way. It is going to be a challenge. It's going to be a hard first couple days to push through. But I wouldn't want to start my trip out any other way than acknowledging this like fantastic history of the land and going through this big challenge with my best friends.
Because you could have started like on Gunflint Lake or Sag or something else, and you're choosing to do it from Lake Superior.
Yeah, I think it's just like honoring that history. The Voyagers would make it all the way to Lake Superior. We're gonna start there.
Yeah, Olivia, Helena, what type of canoes are you all bringing?
Yeah, we're bringing North Star canoes that Abby and Olivia, actually, that's going to be their canoes, and they're B-17s. So they're very nice, and we're super excited. We wanted something that was light enough that would not exhaust us on our trip, but also durable enough that we can take it through the whitewater sections that we're going through.
Right, and you're prepared to repair. You're prepared to repair.
Yes.
Yeah. So at Northern Tier, we actually worked with the son of Charlie Thompson. He created the B-17. He works for North Star. So we spent time talking with him, talking about what are the different canoe types that North Star has, which ones would be best suited, and obviously how to repair them if something happens on trail. So.
Yeah. All right. And what type of packs are you bringing on this?
Yeah, I think the main type of big pack I'll talk about are the Ostrom packs that they reached out to us actually, and they wanted to support us, and we got to have a great conversation about kind of their relationship with the Boundary Waters, them wanting to support people doing expeditions like us, and those are kind of the big people that we want to shout out when we're talking about packs. I don't know if Abby has anything to add.
Yeah. So Ostrom's been around for a while. We're very grateful that they're sponsoring our packs. Besides like our portage packs, we're gonna be bringing some blue barrels for our food.
Mm-hmm. Are those dry bags that they're giving you, or are they?
So they're more similar to like a Duluth pack. The way they make it though is with a frame, so it's I'd say it's a hybrid between a Duluth pack and a backpacking pack. So it kind of sits the weight on your hips, but it is not waterproof. It is not a dry bag, so we're still gonna be packing in our pack liners and our dry bags.
Mm-hmm. And what about food? What's the plan for food? Are you getting resupplied? Or tell me about the food.
Oh yeah. Food is probably the most effort that we're putting into this. It's been like a gigantic process, working with people's parents on like figuring out dehydrating all of the food and planning out meal cycles. We have a 14-day meal cycle to keep things fresh, and we're gonna start off by doing 2 resupplies while we're in the Boundary Waters area, and then after that, when we get to more remote areas like Winnipeg and Hayes, we'll be taking a month of food at a time.
Yeah. So my parents' retirement little hobby right now is dehydrating all of our meals. So every couple days, I'll get a photo of them dehydrated, like 60 cups of rice. So they've been really great in supporting us with that. We will be shipping to Norway House, and we will be shipping to Kenora. We'll have an assisted resupply right before we hit the Lake Winnipeg. And then, she said a couple in the Boundary Waters.
And what's the menu? Like, what's the standard? Give me a day's worth of rations.
Yeah, so, I mean, our breakfasts are pretty simple. We have what we like to call boat oats. That's a hit the water morning, and you have your oats in the boat. We have oatmeal. For lunch, we kind of have a mix of everything, like peanut butter and jelly. We have tuna, chicken. And dinner is a lot of our dehydrated stuff, a lot of rice, a lot of beans, pastas.
Mm-hmm. Any fishing along the way to have some protein that way?
Oh yeah, I would probably say that I am the fisherwoman of the group. Mm-hmm. I do fly fishing, so I'll be taking my fly rod with me, and I think it's just something that will relax me and brings me a lot of joy in the outdoors. I love connecting with the environment in that way. I can't say we can rely on me catching giant fish for us to eat as a meal, but I think it'll be a just kind of great part of our trip. I'll get to teach everyone some of my tips and tricks and kind of things like that, but yeah, and I'd like to mention too, on to what Abby was saying of like all the work that we're putting in and our community is putting in, that it takes a village when we're doing all of this stuff, and that's why it's really awesome that we have so many people in our community supporting us and putting in work to help us out to make this trip possible.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And so the fishing aspect of this.
Yes.
Is that you'll be carrying a fly rod in a case and then assembling it at camp or when you want to fish?
Yes. I have it in my little case. I have an Orvis rod that I just like pop together, and we're working on like the details of all the fishing gear we want to bring, but I have my little fly package. I'm looking into like small collapsible backpacking nets that I can take out with me and things like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And like dry flies or flies that go below the surface?
I have a collection of both. I have dry flies, but I'm also bringing my like little, I think it's highlight fluid, that I just dip them in to get them in the water. So
okay. Yeah, sweet. All right. Interesting. That's cool. And I mean, that's nice protein that you don't have to lug around with you if you can get some fish.
Well, I'm super excited for it.
Yeah, I think it would be really awesome.
All right. Well, I was interested. I thought that the response from both Olivia and Emma about some of the non-traditional, what are you going to do if you break your leg type stuff, more about like moods and if somebody's crabby or if you're not getting along out there, how you're going to navigate some of that, or if you just like get tired and you're like, this, I don't want to be doing this. Like how you're going to plan for that and what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, that's a great question. We've all been working in camps and with youth participants, so we've seen a lot of I don't want to paddle, I'm having a crappy day, and that's okay. Everyone has shitty days. But with that, we've learned how to work together and work with our co-guides, and I guess on this trip we're all kind of the same level, so kind of working through that, talking it out, making sure everyone's feeling good. But sometimes you just have a shitty day and you have to work through it.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, coming from a trip leader perspective, I honestly see my interpersonal skills as one of my greatest strengths as a leader. So I am always trying to work things out in my brain and practice empathy when I'm working with other people. And I think it's really important to have good relationships with the people I'm working with and have honest conversations, even if they're hard. And I think through that, it's going to take a lot of mental resilience from us to maintain, I guess, the promises that we make to each other at the beginning of the trip in our contract, to kind of just break down the barriers between each other. But I don't know, if my friends know that I kind of like am the peacemaker within my groups and things like that. So I plan to just come at this with a lot of empathy and try to, diminish problems before they become an actual problem.
Mm-hmm. All right. I see. That seems like you've thought about this as well, which I'm really grateful that this wasn't like that's not going to be a thing. Like it sounds like it probably will be a thing at some point on the trip.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a long trip. It's going to be really hard. It's going to challenge us mentally, physically, emotionally. And
I think I've seen you engage with our social media posts, in either individuals or through the account that you have for the trip, Hudson Bay Girls. Are you going to just be detached completely? Are you going to have phones for pictures and then, when you get service, you get it type thing? Or what's your engagement with like email, social media, and that type of stuff?
Yeah, so we're going to prepare some posts ahead of time that our family members can push out about, the process beforehand or if we get somewhere. But there are a small collection, a handful of towns along our route that we can stop and get, Wi-Fi or cellular and post something. So make sure to follow us over the summer so you can get some live updates on that.
Right. Okay. And do you think we'll be able to communicate with you in some way?
Yeah. We'll definitely set something up.
Sweet. All right. Yeah. Great. Well, we look forward to following the journey and seeing how it goes for you, following it and sharing the updates with our podcast listeners, people who follow Paddle and Portage. It's really great to meet you in person. I'm glad it worked out that we could connect it. Canoecopia, and that you have Natalie Warren's full endorsement and people like Bear Paulson's full endorsement and support, and people are really cheering for you. I mean, I'm beyond just obviously like your families and close friends. Like there's some serious people in the paddling community. You're talking about like Bear and Natalie. Those are like some elite people in this niche world in which we occupy, and so there's a lot of support. And that can kind of extend out into the ethos of people's feelings and sentiments as you're out there on those kind of strange nights out there in the woods, night 50.
Yeah, I think it's been great for. I honestly feel like Natalie's really paved the way for women. We have not nearly run into as many doubters, I could say, as she has. So it's been really amazing that the progress that the paddling community's made and that we hope to continue.
Yeah, and we're so grateful to have them uplifting us, to have organizations like the Paddle and Portage uplifting us, and we think it sends an important message to other young women like us who are trying to do things like this. We want to see more groups of people who look like us getting out there on the water. That's, at the end of the day, if we can convince, one person that, yes, I can do this, that would make it all worth it.
Great. All right. Fantastic. Well, thanks for carving out some time here at this expo and chatting with us. We'll start following you in May, and we'll take it from there. Thanks a lot. All right. Now we're talking with Helena and Abby. Earlier in the show, we heard from Olivia and Emma. They're the group of four on an expedition this summer 2025 called the Hudson Bay Girls. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Special thanks to Darren and the team from Rutabaga Paddle Sports in Madison, Wisconsin, as well as Canoecopia, where this interview that you just heard today on the podcast was recorded at the Expo in Madison in 2025, although we're already looking forward to next year's event, Canoecopia 2026.
In case you don't know, Canoecopia is probably the largest gathering in the nation when it comes to paddle sports, and therefore it's the largest concentration of storytellers in the nation. We will continue to bring you those stories throughout the year so that you can be as inspired by this great community as we are. Don't forget to like, subscribe, most importantly, go visit the website or the YouTube channel. We appreciate your support.